Okay, I think we are now live. Just wait for a second. Yeah, the live thingy is on. This is a bit of a weird one because I'm talking to someone who is in my house and in the same place as me. And so we're both talking into the same microphone. I'm chatting with my... Oh, God. The audio... The audio is coming through this thing. Wait a second. Okay, cool. So I'm talking about... Hello. Say
hello.
This is my wife. And the reason that I want to have this stream, well, first she said if I mow the lawn, that she would be willing to have a conversation with me. And we've got a front lawn and a back lawn, and I did mow both of them. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, cool. Did I do a good job mowing?
Yes, very good.
Okay, awesome. So the reason we're going to have this conversation is because it's like a week and a half ago or something, and I already knew that you had this book, but you had a book by Deepak Chopra, which what's it called again?
Well, it's actually about kids and about bringing up your kids for spiritual success.
Right, and it's got like 10 rules or something.
7, yeah.
There's 7 rules.
There's an adult version. 7 rules for spiritual fulfillment or something.
Okay.
And these are just this book's just like explaining how it works for kids.
Okay, so it's basically like these rules that he already has for adults, but then he's turned it into a kid's book.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and what happened was we were just like chilling out, and then I was like, I can't remember what we were talking about, just like, I don't know, belief and religion and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, well, you know, I think you believe some pretty like weird stuff because you've got like Deepak Chopra book, and that guy's like a complete hack, and he's just selling like gobbledygook to people. And you know, I have a very literal mind, and I'm very secular, and I don't know if I have a very strong like spiritual side to me. So I was just kind of like ragging on this book, and you took that sort of like more of a like personal statement because for you it was like things that you really believe, or you know, that you use in your life to make yourself feel better, and that to you was like detached from maybe like something logical or something involving reason, but was something more like spiritual. And then we just got into this conversation that went on like the whole day, like this huge back and forth, and it wouldn't stop coming up again. And then we watched some videos of like Sam Harris debating Deepak Chopra as an example, because I was trying to say the guy is a hack, he's full of shit, like he just tells you what you want to hear to sell books. And so we watched Sam Harris debate with him, and you just thought Sam Harris seemed like an arrogant douche, which he is, but that didn't really sway you, you know? So I guess what I wanted to ask was, you know, how you can detach the person that Deepak Chopra is, like sort of hawking these things on the public, with how these beliefs help you, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't really know who he is. I just got this book one day that looked really interesting, and I read the book in itself, and I found those principles to be really helpful. And so, like, to me, well, actually, when I watched that video with you,
yeah,
like I found that Sam Harris was just like on it, or the people around him as well were just like, I guess, debating with him on a completely different level, like that. Right. They're sort of 2 different conversations, and it's about, you know, the framework that they're coming from is just completely different to what he's coming from.
Yeah, well, because they were taking everything like super literally and scientifically.
Yeah. So
like Deepak Chopra will be saying this stuff like, we have a special core, we have a spirit that, I don't know if this is racist to do an impersonation.
Yeah,
Indian guy. Okay, well, should I plow ahead? I don't know. But, you know, he's like, you know, talking about this like spiritual core and this oneness with the cosmos and the way of being and all this kind of thing. And then it would go back to Sam Harris and it'd be like, you know, scientists have not discovered anything to do with this kind of core, and, you know, this is all just sort of words that sound pleasing to people, but it's not backed up by the stats and the statistics and do you reckon that was like completely different conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like what Deepak Chopra actually believes, but I guess it doesn't. The whole point is that it doesn't really matter whether he sees that as being like scientifically true or not. It's actually just a means of connecting with humanity and with nature, like with what's in the world, and it doesn't have to be scientifically true. And so if it you know provides like a good analogy or some kind of tool for people to feel more secure,
right,
then it's kind of irrelevant whether it's true or not.
Are those, do you think, like, because I mean, like, as long as we stay together, like, it will be our kids probably. So we're talking about how to like raise our kids and shit. Do you think you would use these rules on them, like teaching them to like meditate every Sunday and all that kind of crap? Because I feel like you would be trying to teach them the stuff about oneness and meditation or whatever, and I'd just be like, Dad, do I have to do this? It's like, do as your mother says. Like, yeah. And I don't know how like supportive I would be, because I would find it difficult to think like, you know, these are rules that you have to use to raise your kids. You know, you've got to teach them to meditate, and you've got to teach them to be mindful, and you've got to, you know, do all this like meditation stuff, you know.
Well, no, I mean, it's not a dogma. Like, I'm not going to be like, you must teach our kids how to meditate.
Right.
I would just offer it to my kids as being like, here's something that I found helpful, and maybe they have a similar personality to me. And I think this is where like we differ so much, is that I think my brain is just like more set up for connecting with others, and like it seems like I naturally am able to appreciate nature, and including humans in that. And I don't see you, like, you know, I often will go, oh, I love this person, or I love this thing, like nature or whatever. And
like trees.
Yeah, like, and I don't often hear you do that. And so, like, I think some of the way I explain the fact we see it completely different ways is I think maybe you don't feel what I feel. And
yeah, because we always have that conversation about being present, you know. You're just like, you got to be present in the moment, and we're like walking by a river, and you're like, that amazing water smell, can you smell that? And like, I guess, I don't know. You're like, just being at one with where we are, and I'm like,
that's not what I said.
Shows you how good I am at listening. No, but I struggle with that presentness, because often like I am in the middle of a debate, a political debate I'm having with somebody on Twitter in my mind, and like I'm walking like by this river, and I'm like, fuck, I should have said this to that person, or I should have said, that would have been a real good point to make about the tax plan that they, you know, I feel like that they didn't understand it, and I could have gotten them on that point or whatever. But I'm doing a very bad job of appreciating where I am, you know. I don't know if it's to do with like technology, like it takes up the space in your mind, and do you find that you sometimes get caught up in technology and then have to, I don't know, detox from that or something?
Definitely. And I mean, I only offer the fact that presence is helpful because I know that like I am most happiest when I am more present, like fully appreciating the moment for what it is, as opposed to, I think when I am thinking about something and also trying to like observe something at the same time, I feel like a bit torn, you know, between two things.
Right. But I think that maybe a disagreement we had was whether like always being present is automatically the best way to be, or whatever. Like sometimes, is it okay to go off in your mind to somewhere else completely? Or is it okay to be like sitting at the dinner table and like everyone's talking about stuff, you're not really paying attention because you're thinking about ninjas, like I would?
Well, I actually have a quote in the other room that I was thinking about the other day, because we've had this discussion. And the thing is, what I was trying to explain is when you put off paying attention today means that tomorrow you won't also be able to pay attention. Like every time you you let yourself, get distracted or whatever, it means that in the future, when you do want to pay attention, or like when you want to not feel like you're suffering as much, then it's harder for you to pay attention to that and focus on the suffering. And so you basically end up, causing more problems for yourself in the future the more you allow yourself to not pay attention.
But pay attention to what?
To whatever's in front of you.
Will that make your suffering less?
Yeah, because the idea is that when you're suffering, one of the main reasons why you suffer is because you either like resist or ignore your emotions. So it's like about paying attention to them and doing what you need to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that thing about if you pay attention to your stress, do you feel better because you're paying attention to like what's happening to you or what you're going through? But I've often found that if I'm like super stressed out about something, I think about something like completely different. Like I'll think about like superheroes or something, or
Well, I mean, distraction helps as well. Like it depends on how good you are at paying attention. But
I think I disassociate. Like if I'm having a really difficult time with something, my mind just starts to almost separate from my body and go off to a completely different place. And then I feel like I'm not here. This isn't like, it's the whole Radiohead line of like, I'm not here. This isn't happening. Whatever. Like I don't even exist. I'm not, I'm just like a floating brain and all this shit is going on around me, and that's like a coping mechanism for me. But I wouldn't say that's like being present.
No. Yeah. But I mean, that is a way of dealing with it. But it's more like, is that sustainable in all cases?
Depends how much you disassociate it, I guess. I guess if you disassociate like a massive amount, you could probably deal with just about anything, couldn't you?
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen times where you suffer because you resist your emotions. Like, if you're really stressed or something, like, you get sort of frustrated and like despondent or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not distraction. That's kind of resisting.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess it's just a matter of, you wouldn't say that these are rules that you should live your life by. I don't know if Deepak Chopra says that they are like hard and fast rules, but like you have to do this to raise your children, so they have a spiritual core and all this kind of shit. Or if it's like case by case basis, like, okay, I think it would be appropriate to try and teach something a bit more spiritual right now, and then for a different moment I think it would be good to be a bit more like grounded and
I guess I just like, I don't know where I get my faith from, but I have so much faith that if you do follow these principles you will be happier. So I'm not saying that you should follow them necessarily. Like it's up to you. You're your own person, and so is a child. But I just know, like in my heart, and I can't explain. I just know that these principles work for me.
Right. Yeah.
And so they can work for you too. And I also believe that all humans are essentially the same person. Like we're all made up of like the same kind of ability to have the same kind of emotions and the same kind of system to.
What about psychopaths?
Well, I mean, that I'm not saying that like we don't have our limitations, but I mean as in like we fundamentally have the same kind of potential that might already be limited at birth. But but essentially humans are made up of the same kind of system is what I'm saying. And so we can understand each other by appreciating that, like, if I feel anxious, you also feel anxious in your life.
How do you mean?
Like, I mean, I think, my stress is not any different. Like the way I feel stressed is how you like it's the same kind of experience, even though you might
just
be
mean the way
stressed
that,
about different things.
Yeah, like the way you feel stress is the same, even if it's like a different thing that's caused it, or you have different triggers.
Yeah,
that's popular triggers. It's a popular phrase online. Everyone loves that one. But but I think we probably have similar things that make us stressed. I think we just have a very different reaction to dealing with it, you know? And because certainly, like, when I have to do lots of work and I have lots of responsibilities and lots of people are relying on me for things and I feel like I don't have enough time to do any of those things, that's when I get really muddled and stressed. And isn't it the same for you?
Yeah,
like there's too many things on your plate.
But I mean, I'm like, when I say that we all stress by different things, I mean, like, some people can be, I mean, myself, like, might be like super stressed about some like thing that I've got to write, and someone else might be like, that's not that stressful, you know?
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, like, one person might enjoy writing like reports or something.
Yeah.
I mean, when I had to do like data entry or whatever, like, that was a mix between crushing boredom and existential dread and finding something perfectly easy to do. But maybe someone else would get more stress from that as opposed to just kind of like depression or something. Like, it doesn't stress me out to do data entry. It just makes me think my life's pointless and I'm just putting in these numbers and then money comes out the other end.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But fundamentally, like, I think we all share the same stress, in the sense that, like, if we feel like we're incapable of something, or that we're not secure, like that no one loves us, then we all find that stressful. Like,
yeah,
and
definitely.
The way we deal with that, like, it might be, some people might spiral into like depression, or some people might just get angry, or might, you know, like, I don't know, feel sad for a bit or something. Like, that's where we differ. But I think fundamentally we all have these same kind of, humans are flawed in that we all kind of like need to feel secure.
Right. But there's not one size fits all, right?
No, but the way that we can deal with those things, I think, can be universal.
Right.
Like, you know, there are things that, like, I think meditation, for example, I think all people are capable of using that as a tool to feel more secure.
I don't know how true that is, though, because like people always give these sort of generic bits of advice, like fake it till you make it or whatever. And I feel like it sounds like it's something that would apply to everybody. But like when I try to apply fake it till you make it, like, I guess eventually I make it, but on the way there, I'm pretty fucking miserable and unhappy. Like, maybe that's a prescription for success, but not like calmness.
Well, I don't think that fake it till you make it is a sustainable tool, because, I mean,
yeah, like repress it like until you depress it.
Yeah, well, like what I said before, it's like
sense.
Suffering comes from resisting our emotions, and faking it is essentially like saying, I'm not going to recognize the fact that I'm stressed right now.
Yeah.
But meditation, like, the reason why I say that,
well, that was the advice, the generic advice they gave me for my qualification. They were just like, fake it till you make it. And they said it like real happy, like, just fake it till you make it. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds pretty repressive. Like, a lot of people are going to have breakdowns trying to do that.
But
wouldn't it be better to say it's okay to fail and it's all right to accept when things don't go how you want to, but there's always a second chance, and maybe, you know, you can remember a time where you succeeded and try to apply that to the thing you're doing now, you know?
Yeah.
But if you just try to fake it till you make it through every situation, like, I feel like eventually, like, after a long period of time, that could be quite damaging to you. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think fake it till you make it. I think it's, like you say, it's a short-term solution, but I think if you're really, you know, if you're really stressed out, like, pretending that you're not stressed out is just going to make you more stressed out.
Right, yeah. And then you're stressed out about whether you look stressed. You're like, do people think I'm stressed? Or like, do they think I'm normal? Fuck. Yeah.
Whereas meditation, like, the reason why I say that I think that's a universal tool that is helpful is because that's you know, it's not actually like a kind of like airy fairy thing. It's essentially training your mind to pay attention. So you're teaching yourself to come back to a particular thing, like whether it's your breathing or mantra or whatever thing, and that's actually like changing the way that your brain works. And that has been shown over thousands and thousands of years to be like completely universal, and everyone can do it.
Right.
Whereas fake it till you make it is a bit more like, I mean, maybe they said that back in like Roman times or earlier or whatever, but I think it's a fake it till you make it. It's like connected to our society that's a bit more like a capitalist, like obsessed with perfectionism, you know?
It's not really in touch with the idea that people are like emotional beings who can have breakdowns, and that trying to stop certain feelings or certain reactions in the long run isn't going to be good for you. Like it kind of sort of denies that idea.
Yeah, and I think it makes an assumption that there are people that are making it, like, whereas like actually in this
like you made it, now you are no longer susceptible to human fragility,
when like actually the most resilient, like strong people are people that acknowledge that humans are made in this really fucked up way.
Like it's okay for men to cry,
and it's about like just pursuing what you want to do in spite of your struggle, like in spite of all those things that are really hard.
What about that whole thing of like, it's all about the journey, not the destination?
Yeah, well, there's that as well.
Right. But that can be tricky too, because like if you're really not enjoying the journey and you feel like you're not getting to the destination, then what have you got left? You've just got feeling bad.
Well, that's why like mindfulness and meditation is really helpful, because it makes you realize that every single moment has the opportunity for you to be grateful for what you have.
Right.
So the more grateful you are in the moment, like, oh, in this moment I realize that I'm a body that can talk, and I have like the technology to be able to talk on the internet or whatever.
It can backfire when you find out what kinds of people there are on the internet. You're like, oh my god,
no,
so
but
fucking
I mean,
negative.
You know, like I'm extraordinarily privileged, and you know, when I'm worrying about like whether I should cook this or that for dinner, it's like,
hey, come on, you're gonna make it sound like I'm a patriarchal man who's like making you cook food. Someone's gonna use this against me.
Well,
I cook meals twice a week.
Yeah, but I didn't say that you don't. That was you.
I know.
You like obviously feel insecure about that.
Yes, because the internet's always attacking me, so I have to defend myself.
Yeah. Anyway, but like worrying about, I don't know, like I worry about really dumb stuff. Like, I mean, not dumb stuff, because I know that other people worry about it too. But like, you know, like whether I should buy this particular item or this particular item, and often like that stress is a result of me not being present and like realizing that actually like I'm here, and I'm able to be at the supermarket, and I'm able to like walk. And
isn't that just tasks building up? Like if your mind starts getting jumbled with too many things to do, eventually like going shopping might feel like a huge hassle because you've got like 6 other things on your mind at the same time, so then there's not enough space.
Yeah. And so being present kind of lets you like take life step by step. You know, like the other day, I was looking at this little story about how some like ancient kind of story about how
ancient kind of story sounds legit.
Well, you know, like it was a philosophical thing about a guy who wanted to like go on a journey, and he only had this like tiny little light, and he asked like the king or some wise guy or something, can't remember. I'm really bad at recalling stories. You know, like I'm never going to be able to get to where I need to go because I've only got this tiny light and it's going to be really dark and I have to go through this scary tunnel and all this stuff.
Right.
And the wise guy was just like, well, actually all you need is that tiny little light, because every time you take a step, that little light will like light up the next step. And so you go step by step.
Doesn't it depend where he's going though? Because like, what if there's like I guess if there's a ravine, then the light, see, I'm too like literal about everything. Like I can't even think about it in terms of like a metaphor. I'm like, how would this work? Like, okay, where's he walking? I guess if there was a ravine, the light would show, oh, I can't go there. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm about to die. Thanks, light.
Yeah, you know, like at every step of the way, you'll have what's necessary to like know what to do for the next. And I guess that's
right.
like,
but then, okay, yeah. See, my mind is just I'm thinking it through too much. Like, because then he'll need food and water, and then
no.
What if he's cold?
No, I mean, like he's only got to like say
I know it's
only for like 12 hours or something, and he can survive.
Sweet. Okay. Yep.
You know, like all those things are assumed, but the idea is that if you're present with your one little light, then you know life becomes a little bit more simple. When actually, like, you know, you don't need to stress about all these kind of things that might happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why being present is important, because it sort of takes away that sense of like, oh my God, I've got so much to do or so much coming up, you know?
I think just the main issue for me with this is just the idea that works for everybody. But I guess, you know, some people are more capable of being present and meditating than others, whereas like other people sit in a room for like me, when I tried to meditate, I'd sit in a room for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then eventually be like, nothing's really going on. I'm just kind of sitting here and I don't feel present enough, and I just am still thinking about ninjas and just them doing cool things.
Well, that's
shit.
like that's normal. Like it takes a long time to practice, and meditating is not actually like some kind of like special state. It's actually just noticing what's around you. So like if you notice that your mind starts to think about ninjas, that in itself is meditating, because you've noticed that. So it's just like noticing that your brain goes off in all these different.
But that's the thing. I don't know if I would be noticing that I was thinking about ninjas. I just think I'd be thinking about ninjas. Like,
right.
Just like, wow, I bet it'd be so cool if they were like doing flips and then like assassinate some guy and then.
Yeah, well, I guess
this is how ridiculous my mind is. Or I just sing songs in my head. Like I think of songs I like, and I'm like, yeah, that's a real good song, and then just like play the whole thing in my head.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends if you have the resolve. If you really want to learn how to meditate, you would the next time go and be like, I'm going to sit down, and this time when I see myself wanting to think about ninjas, I'm just going to come back to breathing or whatever.
Right.
And so basically the full, like, you know, where you've struggled in your meditation is that you've like allowed yourself to get distracted with pleasurable things. And the whole idea of it is that you see yourself like.
It's just funny describing ninjas as pleasurable things.
No, but it's like.
I guess they kind of are.
But you say like you wanted to think about it.
Yeah, like it's like for me, it's like thinking about like an anime or like a. You know, Dragon Ball Z, or like a TV series that was interesting for me, and that suddenly gets into my mind, and then it distracts me from being able to notice my breathing or even noticing what I'm thinking. I just think stuff.
Yeah.
And then eventually I feel like I'm not meditating. I'm just sitting in a room thinking, and I do that all the time. Like I always sit in a room and think.
Yeah.
It's not like a special thing. And then you get this like cycle where you feel like you failed the meditation.
No, but you haven't.
You know, yeah, but that always happens though. Like that. And that's why I think, like, for certain people, meditation, like the idea that everyone can meditate is almost like, I mean, it sounds kind of extreme. It's a bit like almost insulting to that person, because they're like, why can't I do it? You know?
Well, no, it's about like, the thing is, all things take time, right? So it's about going back again and again and again and again.
Yeah, but eventually just feel like an idiot.
Because like if you get the right teacher, or like you talk to the right person, or you think about, okay, what's one thing I can do that will move me towards the goal of doing what I need to do, then you know, you will slowly make progress, because the next time you sit down, you'll notice that you're going off on a tangent, and then the next time you'll notice twice. And, you know, like every time you go back, you notice more and more and more, like how your mind is working.
I think we talked about it as an analogy before of like trying to learn how to sing.
Yeah.
Whatever, and you were of the belief that everybody could sing. But I also think, like, if you spend 10 years trying to sing and you still sound like shit, like, then what? You can't, can you just say to that person, like, actually, you can't sing, like, you can't do it? You know, like Simon, but, you know, Simon Cowell of American Idol, I feel like he would tell people they can't sing way prematurely. It would just be like, oh, go work as a janitor, or like, or he's like, do you have any experience in retail? And they'd say, oh, yeah, I do. And then they'd say, well, you should consider going back into that, whatever, because he's such a dickhead, you know. But I would feel like at a certain point of effort, like assuming they had really tried to sing for a very, very long time, could there be a point where you could say that, like, it's just not for you singing?
Yeah, well, I don't think the analogy between singing and meditation really works. Because, I mean, I don't know about what is precisely required to be able to sing, but I think singing requires a certain, like, physical aptitude in your, like,
right.
in your, like, throat, or
at a top, like, you can't change the timbre of your voice to that extreme level. I've heard some people's, like, timbre, their voice change, and that happens. Even with training, you can change it, but it's only within certain limits. Like, you can't have a completely different voice unless you undergo some sort of physical change, manipulation. Or
whereas meditation is like a very simple exercise. It just takes training. Like, it's literally just coming back to paying attention to what you have decided to pay attention to. So you do it in your daily life, like every time like you're doing something and then you notice that you've, like, been distracted, you go, oh, actually I need to go back to that. That is meditation, like that. And that when you sit down and pay attention to the exercise, you're basically just training your mind to be able to do that faster and faster and faster.
Right. But you also cannot allow yourself to judge yourself for being distracted.
No, you have to be really gentle and like,
oh, fucking idiot, you lost attention again. You can't do anything right, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's like a training ground for you to learn how to be nice to yourself as well. Because the more you're able to say, oh, it's okay that you got distracted, it means that next time you do something in life where you, I don't know, like do something that you don't like about yourself, you get angry at someone, then in just the same way, your brain will see that as like, oh, I can forgive myself for that, just as I forgive myself for getting distracted. And so you're like training these muscles in your mind.
Yeah. Is this also related to like trying to lose your ego?
Well, yeah, because your ego is basically what connects you between, like, when you get into your thoughts. So, like, when you see ninjas and you're like, oh, that would be a nice thing to think about, that thought about, I want to think about that, that's your ego. That's like your ego is attaching itself to thoughts. Like, thoughts in your mind are...
But why couldn't you just say that your ego is trying to force you to meditate, you know? Your ego is like, oh, my ego thinks that being present and meditating is the way that my life is going to really get better, but that's just an egotistical way of approaching it, you know? Because couldn't you apply ego to just about anything that you do?
It is your ego as well.
Yeah.
It is your ego.
So it doesn't mean it's bad? Or...
No, ego is not bad. It's just that you don't want it to be out of control. Like, you have to be in control of your ego.
Right.
So, like, we've talked about, and I know you disagree, but like, you have sort of like two selves. Like, you know, you have your ego self and you have your self that is a bit more sort of like observing everything. And if that observer can't see what the ego is doing, then you've kind of lost your way. Like,
do you think ego is like trying to put a value on everything all the time?
The ego is
right. Like, you know, if you see a sign in the street,
yeah,
and you feel like it's got a certain message to it that you disagree with, and then you judge it, and then you start ranting to people about, oh, that ridiculous sign I saw, like, yeah, fuck. Is that your ego?
Yeah, all judgment is ego.
Right, but it's also not all judgment is a bad thing. Like, sometimes you have to judge. You have to.
Yeah, but you, as long as like the observer in you can see that that's what your ego is doing. Like, so your ego might be like, oh, that's nice.
Right.
And if your observer self can see that and go, yeah, actually that is nice, then let's go in that direction. But if it's just like your ego is going, oh, that's nice, let's do that, and you don't have a chance to kind of have that space between doing it and thinking it, that's where you start suffering, because you get like attached to things.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, I think about online spaces a lot because I'm on there a lot, and I do get the impression that a lot of the like debates and conversations are sort of about ego, because everybody wants to be right about something, and if they're not right about it, then I don't know what happens to them. Like, they feel vulnerable or something.
Yeah, I think I think it just comes back to like I often see myself wanting to be right about something, and it comes
also, yeah, I mean, not excluding me.
Yes,
obviously. So.
Yeah, but I think when I see that, it's because I feel like on a fundamental level that I'm not loved enough, like that I'm not worthy of, like, you know, love, like, because I feel like unless I'm right, people are going to think that I'm like deluded, or, you know, that I'm not good enough. And sometimes the way that I get over like wanting to be right, like it often happens in my work, because I do like,
well, don't give up too much information like crazy people.
No, but I do law.
Oh my god. Okay.
What, is that bad?
No, it's probably fine.
But you know, like when you're arguing something, you can quite easily see yourself becoming like connected to that. And when someone on the other side says, oh, but what about this? Like, it's so easy to like think, oh no, that can't be right, because I need my position to be right.
Right.
And I often see myself doing that. And then I think, I try to remind myself that, you know, I am worth, I have self-worth aside from that stuff. Like, my life has meaning outside of being right.
But isn't a thing that's important to humans is also like being valued in like the social environment that you're in. So if you're in a meeting and you give a certain idea that you think is really good and you just get shut down and like real quick, and then everyone just ignores you, don't you go away from that meeting feeling like, I'm so unimportant and I'm so worthless, no one listened to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
is that like an ego flaw thing, and should people just get the fuck over it? Or
well, it's really hard. Like, I think everyone is vulnerable to that sense of like, I want people to like me, because I think I've read that like one of the sort of like fundamental kind of human capabilities that we needed, like as kind of hunter-gatherers, is to be able to have strong social networks, because the more people you have, the more resources you can get, you know. And so, you know, we have this kind of mind that will be like, you're a dick if you don't fit in with everyone else. But the sort of Deepak Chopras of the world, or like, you know, all those spiritual wise guys would say that what you need to do is acknowledge that your ego is going to say things like, you're a dick and you should have done this and blah 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 blah.
Right.
But just knowing that that's just your ego, like, and one thing I find that's really helpful is that someone said that all your thoughts like those are just like made up of thoughts that have kind of happened over many years. Like they might come from society, or they might come from like a reaction that you had like long time ago, and so they're all just kind of like this cycling library of like negative thoughts. And it's about you just seeing that for what it is and just moving on to the next thing that you need to do without like getting caught up in it. Because people will often, you know, go, oh shit, I'm a really like terrible person, and I should just quit my job, and like, you know, and it gets like out of control. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm like, when I say these things, I haven't clocked them.
No, I mean, I like it's a bit more intense, but I mean, like when people get suicidal, they think that nobody cares about them and no one values them or anything. It's not necessarily reasonable. I suppose there could be some cases where literally there's no one, you know, and it's quite a sad case, obviously. But I think there's many other cases where people do care about them. That's just like kind of a fact, but they can't understand that. They can't see that. And maybe they haven't talked to the people who actually care about them in some time. Maybe they feel alienated from them, but they wouldn't realize that after they are dead, that all these people do care and are like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, because that happens all the time. Like someone's like, no one cares about me. And then they commit suicide, and then heaps of people do care, and you see it. You're like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I think Deepak Chopra would say that, like, he's not my guru or anything, but I know we're just talking about him in this conversation.
Yeah.
But I think he would say that, like, the ultimate is that you understand that actually you don't need anyone. Like, it's only your ego that needs people.
But Deepak Chopra needs his customers to make that money, make that bling.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's suffering from ego as much as we all are. But...
Well, we didn't quite get to the main point of contention that we had about him, but we can continue on this track a little bit more.
I know.
What do you think?
No, what?
No, because it sounds like you were about to make a deep point or something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that, like, I'm not sure. Like, I aspire to that thing. Like, you read often that, like, you know, gurus in prison or whatever, that in the past that have been locked up, you know, they're happy as much being, you know, isolated as they were outside the prison, that the environment doesn't affect them. But I think maybe I'm still a bit sort of cynical in that I'm not sure, you know, I would love to aspire to that, but I think maybe in reality, you know, it's more about acknowledging that you will feel lonely. Like, yeah,
like, I acknowledge my loneliness, whatever.
Yeah, like, you will feel disconnected.
You gotta be like Bane from Batman.
Yeah.
It's like, I was born in the darkness. Okay, that's
I guess that's, yeah, I guess I don't understand it myself completely. And so, yeah, I find it hard to imagine that you don't feel, I don't think it's about not feeling lonely. It's about letting yourself feel lonely and just acknowledging that it's part of the human condition.
Yeah, being human.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can be too human. You know, like, you can feel your flaws and your loneliness much too strongly, and then it can become overwhelming. But I think if you can just feel a certain amount and recognize that could be healthy. But if you're just wallowing in loneliness, like, that could be quite an issue, couldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the
and a lot of people, see, I just interrupted you. A lot of people feel like they can't not be lonely because they can't make those, like, human connections. And so it feels like a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense, not to blame them for, like, their actions, but that's the way that their personality, or, you know, the way that they are in society seems to pan out. And then that would just lead to, like, twice as much self-blame. Like, oh, I try so hard, but I just cannot relate to other human beings, and I'm like 5 times as lonely. Like, I mean, that's a very big question, but, like, what's a solution for people who feel like, as people, they're kind of broken? You know, and I've known various people throughout the years who are like, I am broken, I'm busted, I can't fix myself, like, I'm completely fucked, you know?
Yeah, I know it's going to be unpopular, but I'd say, like, meditation.
You must meditate.
No, like, only recently have I, like, fully appreciated, like, how important it is, or, like, how useful it is to meditate. Because, I mean, I have, like, you know, I've had anxiety and all those kind of things about, you know, thinking that I'm the one that's finally going to be, you know, fail in life. But the more that you meditate, the more you see that that's just thoughts.
But can your levels of loneliness impact your ability to, or your support structure impact your ability to meditate? Like, if your life isn't so bad, you know, it's probably easier to meditate. You've got like more time, you've got a bit more emotional support or whatever.
Yeah.
But if your life is like really screwed and you're expecting like meditation to fix your life, you might be underwhelmed.
Oh, definitely. I'm not saying that it's going to like solve the problems like
just
today.
help. Yeah.
It's just like in the long term, it's something that is like you're going to have to start.
Right. Because some people have like quite a lot of loneliness to overcome, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think, you know, in the short term, the main thing is like, and it's really hard to do, but to remember that like actually everyone is lonely, you know, like we're all in this together.
Right.
And some people might, you know, like not notice it as much as you do, but it's like so normal.
But I feel like, you know, I mean, I'm more like of a liberal, but I feel like the conservative mindset is more like, you know, do it yourself, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like you deal with it. And, you know, the people that we really worship are the people who went through great hardship and then succeeded and came out the other end. And all the people who went through great hardship and crumbled and died, we just forgot about them, you know?
Well, no, that's because, like, I actually think that's like maybe misunderstanding what people that have overcome great hardship have to do. Because I think what they do is they become able to go on in spite of struggle. So, you know, it's not about like hardening up. It's about going, oh shit, this is hard, but I'm going to keep going.
Right.
You know, like, and so
persistence.
Yeah. So saying to someone harden up is not helpful because you can't make those thoughts go away. They're never going to go away. You just have to let them be there.
This sounds like now it sounds like one of those TV ads. They're like, harden up, mate. Like, I don't know how to harden up, but you know, I don't know how the ads go. And then it's like, don't tell someone to harden up. Give them help. Like, you know, give them this phone number or some shit. Like, sounds like the worst ad possible. This is totally unrelated, but it made me think of that ad, like, about calling stuff gay. Can you remember that one? And the guy drops his pie and he's like, that's gay.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy's like, that's not gay. Don't say gay. Like, okay, this complete tangent, but okay, I see. Yeah, don't tell people to harden up. Tell people to persist and keep trying and stuff.
Yeah, and like to acknowledge that.
Fake it till you make it.
No, it's not fake it till you make it. It's like acknowledge that you do feel that way. You know, like
the cat's
I think
distracting.
You know, when I'm at my worst, like the thing that I find hardest to keep going is like I shouldn't feel this way. Like I deserve not to feel this way. You know, like I often am like, why is it me? Why am I the one that finds this hard? When, like, you know, I think it helps to remember that everyone around us finds stuff hard, and it's just that you can't see all their people's thoughts. You're just only seeing what they put out.
Well, and also some people are incredibly defensive and, you know, denying that anything is hard about what they're going through. Like,
yeah.
They'll be like, no, it's fine. It's really, no, I'm totally succeeding, like just nailing it. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then maybe when they go home and they're on their own, they're a bit more like insecure. Like, maybe they're thinking like, oh, I suck, I'm terrible. But they're like, no, my life's great. Like, you know. And there's there's also a lot of like bravado and braggadocio online as well. Like people always being like, oh, I'm doing fantastic. Like, but you never really know if somebody's doing fantastic.
No. And if they are, like, they still would have known, like, struggle in the past. And so you, like, it's sort of, I think, you know, it's not helpful to go, oh, you have it easy. You know, like, that's what often, like, I feel like especially when I was younger and, like, depressed, I'd be like, oh, you're going around smiling and you just find everything so easy.
Right.
And they might, like, in that moment, they might be having a good time. But there would have been times when they were like, you know, finding work really boring, or, you know, finding something really hard. And it's kind of like recognizing that, like, it all comes in waves, up and down, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, that seems to come up a lot in like feminist circles too, because, you know, I'm like a white cis dude, and then if I try to get involved in like a conversation between, like, I don't know, transgender people or some women, then they will be like, you know, your experience is not the same, so you don't really understand it, or you can't really contribute. Do you feel like that is a similar thing at all, or no?
I do think that obviously there are people that are more privileged than others, and I do think that there is a certain like element to, you probably don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't understand like what it feels like to be in a minority or whatever.
But would you judge them for putting that on me? Because would you feel like they were being egotistical about that?
Well, it depends on how they're using it. Like, I don't think it's, I sort of am in the camp that, like, it's not helpful to be like, you wouldn't understand, so don't even talk, you know, like, I don't think that's really helpful.
Well, I think the don't even talk part thing wouldn't really work on me. Like, I would still talk, but I think the first part of like, you wouldn't understand, yeah, that's fine with me. But yeah, I probably don't. Like, yeah, it's a good point. I don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
I don't have a personal experience with that, but I'm still gonna like talk, and I'll do my best to not, you know, talk over you or try to tell you how it is, because it's like a real shitty thing to do. Like, oh, excuse me, I'm just a white cis dude. I'm just gonna tell you how it is, whatever. But I can't help but have like some sort of view or kind of like opinion or whatever. So I try to give it respectfully and try to say this is my point of view. But if you say don't talk to me, I'm like, wow, I'm still gonna like talk and stuff. I mean, I guess like they don't have to listen. Yeah. But there's a way to like talk to someone about a topic like that in like a shitty way where you're just talking down to them, being like, oh, excuse me, I think I understand, whatever.
Yeah.
And a way of being like, I'm respectful of your experience and I understand. Well, I don't understand like totally where you're coming from, because I can't relate to that, but I respect your experience. I totally understand that I don't really get that. This is just kind of a point of view I have as kind of like someone who's an outsider to that experience, you know, and you can discard that. You say that's a bunch of shit, you don't get it, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's really up to you. Like, that's fine.
I think that, like, say, men can probably empathize with like the feelings that women have, like in the sense that, like, if I say to you, I find it like highly frustrating to be in a team full of men.
Yeah.
You can probably understand what that feeling is like, but you can't understand like the sort of like how to get out of an ineffective, like how to get out of a situation like that.
Yeah.
Or like the powerlessness that we feel. You know, you can understand the emotions, but not necessarily like what the situation is.
Right, because some reactionary people just say things like, that's just being sexist. Like, you should be able to be on a team with anybody, whether they're male or female, whatever. But it's like you get put in that personal experience where like everyone else is male. It's not the same as like in theory that you have to like feel good about every situation you're in. You know, it's kind of like, I feel like a minority. I feel completely lost here, whatever. And I feel like, you know, a lot of the times it's just people because they don't relate to it, or they talk about things solely in terms of like principles and theories, that a lot of people just completely discount that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think usually when, like, I'd like to think that usually when someone's saying you wouldn't understand, they're really saying you're denying my experience. Like, if someone's sort of saying,
oh yeah, I wouldn't deny it, but that's the thing. Like, I don't understand because I don't have that experience, and I totally acknowledge that. But sometimes things are taken as like, I'm trying to tell you how things are, and I'm just ignoring what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe they get, or they sounds really vague, but maybe people get defensive because they are used to people saying like, I'm going to tell you how it is.
Yeah.
You know,
But it comes from, like, when they say you wouldn't understand, it comes from a place of, you know, like you might not understand what I feel. It's not necessarily saying that you can't ever understand, because that's, I think anyone, like, just thinking back to what I was just saying, is you can understand the emotions that someone's going through. I think you can also, you know, like, you might never be able to see exactly how that person reacts to that situation, but if you truly listen, you can learn, like, a whole lot about how that situation is.
Right.
But usually when that comes up, you know, I often have that, especially in the race kind of space, like, and especially when I was kind of new to that kind of stuff, like, people would say, oh, like, you're a Pākehā, you would never, or like, you're a white person, you would never understand, like, what I'm going through. And that was,
oh, right, yeah, you talked about that.
But that's more because, like, I think in those situations, it was because I would be saying, oh, could you do this, or could you do that? And that they saw that, whether real or perceived, they saw me as denying what they thought, you know?
Right. Yeah.
When I actually, what they say is, like, you should be, like, listening, you know, like, asking what I want and what I need.
But also, like, isn't there a part of, like, you know, because, I mean, like, we're from New Zealand, so we're talking about, like, Maori and Maori culture, like, a lot of, you want to feel like you can be a part of it. You know, you want to feel like, oh, I can be included in, like, Maori culture, whatever. But at the same time, there's a lot of, like, appropriation, and then, like, Maori people might feel like white people always come in here and they try to, you know, be like, oh, I'm Maori too. Like, I totally understand everything to do with your culture and everything. And they're all like, not really, but, you know. And then what? They expect you to listen, I guess, rather than, you know, come in and be like, I'm the white person who gets everything. Like, you know. But then do you have to put aside your ego to be like, okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to try to be like, because it makes me think of The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise, when he goes to Japan and then he gets captured and stuff, and he learns how to be a samurai, and then he becomes, like, the best samurai in the history of the world, and he's, like, more Japanese than Japanese people. He's like, they're like, he is the greatest samurai. And he's like this white dude, you know. Isn't there like, there's a part of a lot of white people around some of these cultures that I feel like want it to be that way, to be like, I will like go to the marae and do dances and sing songs and waiata with the Maori people, and then 20 years down the line I will be like the ultimate Maori person. And I'll be better than actual Maori people being Maori. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and then they'll make a movie out of it.
I think that's just like privilege, because you're basically just taking all the, like, benefits of, like, if you're truly like, I want to be Māori, you know, like, if there's, like, a white person, it's like, I know someone who like, kind of doesn't want to be white,
right?
But that's just taking all the privileges, like, all the good stuff that comes with Māori, and denying the fact that, you know, there's this whole struggle that you don't have to feel, you know.
But you try to get involved in it, perhaps.
Yeah.
You go to protests, or, like,
and, like,
try to get into the community.
Yeah, and you can benefit of all the positive things, but you don't, like, it's right that they, you know, would say you wouldn't understand, because you don't get, like, pulled up in your car more often, or, like, you know, you don't get, like,
or you didn't grow up in, like, South Auckland
on the street, and you're not, like, you might not have experienced poverty or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I do think that there's a place for allies, but I just think that you have to be very humble and listen and be prepared to question your privilege.
Don't you have to be kind of realistic that people are going to be skeptical of you?
Yeah.
Because and people say, like, it's like racism or something, like, because of your skin color, potentially.
Yeah.
But I think that is just the dynamic of, like, a majority culture interacting with a minority culture. Like, the minority culture is probably going to be guarded because they've also seen like many of the terrible things that have happened to minority cultures throughout history. And I also think it's quite interesting because the whole like white supremacist, white nationalist conversation going on, like it goes on like throughout Europe and in America, and I think we've got a few white nationalists here, but very marginal, whatever. I feel like a lot of those people are kind of trying to get that minority experience of being like put upon, and like our culture's under threat, and white people are going to become the minority, but they kind of put it in overdrive. They put it on steroids, and they try really hard to be like victimized over being white, if you know what I mean. And I feel like that is not something that most minority groups desire or want. They don't want to be victims, or whatever. They just are very wary because they've seen bad things that have happened. So if you're like a white ally and you try to like go into Maori culture, they might be quite skeptical of you. And I feel like that's something you would have to realistically deal with.
Yeah.
You can constantly have a meltdown, like, oh, they're so racist against me or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've experienced that, like, when I was learning the language, and, I felt like they were being quite hostile towards me, and I was still quite young and reacted in this way that was like, oh, that's,
Yeah, maybe take it really personally.
Yeah, even though I didn't complain, like, I still like felt really hurt by it. But I think you're right that it's about being realistic, that one of the costs of taking like the benefits of learning another culture is that you might not be received with like open arms, and
you want to, like, a lot of people want to.
Yeah, and like that, it doesn't come like free of that. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn, but yeah, it's probably one of the more nuanced things about like getting involved in causes that are not your own.
Right. Well, I mean, I even experienced that when I lived in Japan. I lived in Japan for 4 years, and the first year was like really awesome because I was like, everything's new and everything's special and exciting. And, oh my God, Daiso, look at these products. Wow, everything's like so different. The architecture, like the culture, the food. And then after about a year, like culture shock suddenly hit when I would just be like walking around being like, oh my God, like I'm the only white person here, and I want to be Japanese, and I want to be going around like having these casual conversations in Japanese, and like go into, all of the my Japanese is so rusty, izakayas and pubs and stuff, and just fit in and just be like everybody else. But then eventually I started to feel a lot of alienation because I was like, I'll never be Japanese. I'll never be that kind of person. And you just started getting like kind of depressed, like I don't fit in, whatever. And then the third stage after I got over the culture shock was like acceptance. It was like, I'm walking around and I'm a white dude, and I'm never really going to be like quote unquote Japanese, and that's okay because it's just I am who I am, and people are going to react to me how they do. But I had to go through that like initial grieving phase of being like, I'm not Japanese. No one loves me in this country, But I kind of got over it.
That's interesting to hear, because I think one of the reasons, like when I lived in Berlin for a year, and I feel like I didn't come to that point. Like I in a different way from you.
Like, I want to be German.
I didn't want to be German, but I got really upset that they weren't like me. Like that I'd always be like, why do you not see the world in the way that I do? Like, and it would happen way more than like, when you're in New Zealand and everyone kind of shares a cultural thing. It doesn't happen as often, but there it would happen like on a daily basis. Like they would ask me too many questions, and I'd be like, why do you have to keep asking questions? Like,
right.
And I'd always be like,
I've heard a lot of interesting things about Germans.
But I'd always be like, they're wrong. Like their way of living is wrong and mine's right. And that created so much suffering for me that I got really sick and anxious and had to come home. But
what? Yikes.
But like, I think you're right that you and it must be just like, it's probably like a brain thing as well.
I didn't have that. I mean, I wasn't like, they need to be like New Zealand. I was like, I need to fit in.
Yeah, you know,
I need to be like them.
But I think
I can't be. You know?
I think it's a similar, like, the motivation behind it is that you want to be together. You know, you want to be connected.
Yeah,
and
I want it to be like walking around on a, you know, yukata robe, you know, eating sushi and, you know, hanging out in the onsen naked with a bunch of old men. Like, this is my goal.
But, you know, like, but I think your strategy is just a different strategy. Like,
yeah,
you want to be like them, and I wanted them to be like me, and it's kind of the same thing, but yours is probably more realistic.
I know. I feel the latter one is kind of worse. Like,
like, I want 80 million people to be like me.
Right. I mean, we've only got like 4 million people here, so I don't know how we're gonna invade Germany. This can be rough. But I feel like this has gone completely off topic from our original thing. How much longer do you want to keep going?
Probably not too much longer.
Right. So I thought we could come back to, I think what drove the argument about Deepak Chopra the most was how I said or perceived that he sticks his nose into science.
Yeah.
And especially like he came up with something called like quantum, can't remember what it was. Quantum something.
No.
It was like, I don't know, quantum spiritualism or like some shit, you know. But it was basically like he was appropriating like quantum mechanics and creating this new theory. And in that conversation we saw between like Sam Harris and Deepak Chopra, like Harris was basically saying like, you know, he's appropriating scientific language to create something that sounds scientific but is not scientific. And my concern with it was just his encroachment into the realm of science. Because I thought like, if he wants to do 7 ways to raise your kids, and he wants to do, you know, particular rules, and he wants to do this mystical life stuff and meditation, that's perfectly fine, so long as it is labeled as such. As long as it's like, these are just some recommendations, these are things I think are helpful, these are things that are useful. But when he starts trying to create like his quantum spiritualism or something that doesn't have anything to do with like quantum mechanics or actual science, then I began to feel like, okay, this is the part of him that I really just hate. You know?
Hate?
Well, kind of, because I mean, maybe hate's too strong a word, but, you know, I don't like mega preachers. I don't like people saying like, oh, this is the way to enlightenment. Like, you have to do this particular thing. You know, if you worship in the way that I want you to, then your life will be fine. Now give me like, you know, $100 donation. And then there's all these people who are kind of brainwashed. Like, I think the part of Deepak that's saying like, this is in line with this new crazy science that I've come up with, was the part that reminded me of just any old religious hack, you know. And I felt like that was a part of it that we argued about a lot. But I don't know if you think like, to you, maybe that's irrelevant. Like, you don't care if he is also like encroaching on science.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know about him, and I haven't investigated enough whether he is telling the truth or not. You know, like in the sense of science.
Yeah.
But if
from what I can tell, he just appropriated quantum, like the word quantum.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you know that for certain. Like he,
did some reading about it a few weeks ago, but you know, my memory's terrible. So
he's, you know, he does say he did a physics degree or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know at all. So, but I would say that if he is appropriating science, then I mean, personally, I don't care for the reasons you said. Is that because
you find worth in other things.
Yeah, I just take what I want and leave it, kind of thing. But I do understand, and I probably am sympathetic to the view that it's not good for like the state of knowledge.
Cat's being annoying. Yeah.
It's not good for the state of knowledge to logically mix something up. You know, like
that's kind of the angle that those debates would be from, because like Sam Harris and the other dude who was there, they would be there like representing the side of like science and logic and reason, and then Deepak Chopra would be there representing like the spirit and the soul and the I don't know, the inner being and all this kind of shit, and they're just completely different worlds. But then when Deepak starts like dipping his toe into the science realm, that's when, you know, people like Sam Harris get particularly hostile.
I know, but I feel like they have gone to the other direction, that they diss everything he says. Like, they don't believe in, like, when he says, like, God and stuff like that. They're like,
no, yeah,
there is no God,
right.
You know, all that stuff. And I actually think that, like, I do differ on that. Like, I believe in a God in the sense of, like I was saying, like, earlier, we're all kind of the same human being, like, but just different events. And
we're very different in that sense, because I just don't believe in God at all.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's okay. But what I'm saying is that, like, I know that, like, my belief in that is not necessarily, like, scientific, but it serves a different purpose. So I think when they diss him for that stuff, they're wrong. But I didn't generally find the way that they, like, you know, attack someone's not very kind. But
no.
but I do understand that, you know, and I went to a talk, like, where another person was like, you know, quantum physics is helping us to, like, see that there is a God and this kind of thing.
Yeah, they do that sometimes.
And I mean, if someone's coming to that, like, with an open mind and understands that they might not mean that literally spiritualism and science are connected, but more, I think they're trying to convey this concept that, you know, you can find reverence in science. Like, you know, when you see the beauty of things in the atomic level or whatever.
But I feel like that's just putting a value onto something. Like, you put the God value or the spiritual value onto that thing.
Yeah.
You know, because just because you can see something in the world that's amazing doesn't mean that there has to be God in there unless you put it in there. Like, okay,
yeah,
the reason it's so amazing is because it shows the beauty of God or whatever.
Yeah, but they're two different things. But I do think that because science is not well understood in general, like, people are not very science literate, then it isn't helpful, because
that's where Deepak comes in. Yeah.
Because you know, it makes confusing, and
it makes confusing. Confusion.
Like, it makes it confusing.
Oh, it makes it. I didn't hear the it. Okay.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't really see, like, the harm. Like, I have no conclusions to make on whether Deepak Chopra is, you know, just trying to make money. But apart from that, I don't really see the harm that he's causing by.
Well, for me, what really counts is how it impacts education and how they teach science to people, you know? So if he's managed to creep into certain classes, I think that would be the big issue. But I don't really have any evidence on that, so I don't really know if that's the case. But that would be the thing that I'd be concerned about, like, people being taught this stuff like it was actual science.
Right.
I don't know if that's what's
happening. But I don't think that's what he's saying. Like, he's not, I mean, I'm not sure, but as I understood it, he's not saying that he's creating science. He's saying that science, like, gives us a spiritual sense, you know?
Right. I would have to, like, look into that.
Yeah.
Like, off the top of my head,
Yeah.
I can't say what he entirely says.
But I feel like a lot of the rage that comes, like, towards him is more about people needing to be right or wrong, and they can't deal with this whole, like, possible uncertainty, when actually, if they were secure in what they knew, then it wouldn't matter if someone like Deepak was going around saying some, like, completely untruths.
Yeah, but when Deepak's on the stage with those guys, he's very much as forceful in his view.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't matter that he's saying that. Like, if they truly believed that science was as powerful as they say, then why is science not trumping, you know?
Well, because they would also be concerned that science isn't like an infallible thing. It can be attacked, you know, in schools they can attack it by like changing textbooks and like getting creationism put in there and like, you know, preaching to children about God and how our country was founded on God and like, and you know, not separating the kind of like spiritual belief that you talk about from like something that's true and real. And then that kind of implications on like policies.
Well, I think if that is what he's trying to do, like is trying to create a new science, then I agree that that's not helpful, but I don't know if that's what he's trying to do.
Right. I mean, I would have to look into it more. Like, I don't have any information on hand. Like, I don't have studies. But how has Deepak Chopra's beliefs impacted science class or school? I have no idea if it has. But I certainly know it's made him very rich. But then again, writing about atheism has probably made Sam Harris fairly rich too. So, and I was going to say, Sam Harris, we talked about this before, but he does meditation. And I was like, you could do secular meditation with Sam Harris.
But I'm not doing religious meditation.
Oh, okay. You're just saying like normal.
Like meditation isn't.
But you could replace Deepak Chopra's. You don't do meditation with Deepak Chopra.
No. And it's like, that's what I'm trying to get across, is that meditation like is not a religious thing in itself. Like you can overlay it with religious stuff.
Right.
But there's no need to. It's not.
I know. I was thinking of like secular meditation with Sam Harris. He'd be like, you're on a beach. It's nice and calm. Like, look at the water. And there is no God. And fish is going past.
But
the fish is in a naturally evolving creature.
That's not really meditation, though. That's more like, that's more just.
There's no God. Let it fill you with calm.
That's kind of more like mindfulness.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I want you to notice the lack of God.
But
just notice it.
But even like I do it with a mantra, like it's just a syllable that I say in my head over and over again. And that's not religious. That's just like literally me just saying a syllable over and over and over in my head.
Can you say what it is, or is it secret?
No, it's secret.
Oh, okay. Does that mean everybody should find their own syllable?
No,
syllable.
How
does that work?
I got given mine.
Like, is it like qua or like?
No, we're not gonna go into what it is.
No, but by syllable, just mean like a word sound.
Yeah.
Like Lee.
Yeah.
Lee.
Yeah.
Ma.
Yeah.
Ma. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I will try to find my spirit syllable. All right. I think that we have basically covered everything. I haven't been looking at the chat. Hopefully nothing to. Muslims come to kill you. Hating Muslims. Okay. You can see how good the chat is. Chupacabra? Oh yeah, have you heard of that? Chupacabra.
Who's that?
What she was talking about didn't sound like a god. Why the hate, Tim? Tim is a weebo. Oh, this is good. Like, you know, no one's like slagging you off or anything, so that's a positive thing. Like I said before, like sometimes when YouTubers do hangouts or conversations with loved ones, people try to glean all this shit about their private lives, and it just turns really terrible. But I can say for sure we're doing fine, aren't we?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, anything else you're going to say?
No.
Oh, is that it? That's quite sudden. I felt this has been a good conversation.
Yeah, it has been good. Thank you for encouraging me to come along.
No problem.
Join your channel.
And I hope you have a good conversation about faith, belief, meditation, Sam Harris, Deepak Chopra, your soul, and how you feel and cope with your issues and stress. This is Tim the Motivator signing off. Goodbye.